Today, I'm going to show you a great exercise for not only painting clouds, but also working on watercolor timing. One thing that I always tell my students is if you don't have time to paint a complete painting, work on something like this. So this will get you going with color mixing, with watercolor timing, and brush practice. So it's a good way to practice a lot of different things in a small, powerful exercise. The first thing I'm going to do is wet down the back and the front of my paper. And today I'm using just a little piece of paper for this practice exercise since I'm not creating a full painting. And what I'm going to do is wet down the back of this nice and evenly. I'm going to do the same thing on the front. And you'll notice I'm not drawing anything up in the sky. I'm going to just do this off of brushwork. When I paint skies, I don't like to put pencil lines up there because usually I'm painting pretty lightly and those pencil lines will show through. So when I'm painting skies, I just really rely on the brushwork. What I'm going to do first is lay in a light gray for the clouds. I'm going to start with my mop brush and I'm going to take a little bit of lavender and some raw sienna. Those are the two colors. I like how they mix together and it's just a quick way to make some nice gray. Now if you don't have lavender, you could use some Ultramarine Blue and a little bit of Rose Madder Permanent or some alizarin crimson, something like that. And so I'm going to lay in this color for the cloud and then we'll be negatively painting the cloud after that. I'll show you what I mean in just a minute. So we're laying in the lightest colors first and we're painting light to dark. Now, I'm painting kind of one main cloud here. I know that I want that cloud to be the brightest. So everywhere else around the scene, I can go ahead and cover the paper, knowing that this is going to be the brightest cloud right here. Now, this might be hard to see on camera because I'm painting pretty lightly, but I'm going to use a little more lavender. And within a cloud, there are some soft little value changes. Little bits like this that are just slightly darker, but they're not hard edges. That's why I like painting this cloud wet into wet. And we're slowly going to build up the strength from there. I'm not worrying about any type of ground or anything underneath this. So I can just go ahead and take away the white of the paper just like this. Just bring that all the way down to the bottom of the paper. Now I'm going to get a different brush. I'm going to use this medium round brush. And I'm going to do the same thing I just did with some thicker pigment and less water. So more lavender, more raw sienna, and now I'm going to put just a little bit of neutral tint in there. And what neutral tint will do is just darken up my mixture a little bit. And if things are looking a little too warm, like I used some raw sienna there, I can put some Cobalt Blue in with that mixture to darken it up or cool it down a little bit. Still just working with this gray color so far. So now I'm going back to where I painted the clouds. I can drop in even a little bit more of those little soft value changes and nuances. And I always mention this too when I'm painting clouds and skies, is that I'm not going to get it to look exactly like the reference. If I'm looking at every tiny little detail and trying to copy it perfectly, it's just things are going to dry up and I'm going to lose what I'm doing. So just try to create an impression, and that makes it really fun when you paint things like this because it's not like you're painting a person or a portrait or something that has to be so exact. You really get to just kind of relax and let watercolor do its thing. Just bring some of that down. Now that we have these little bits of grays in here, I'm going to start to introduce some blue. So I'm going to rinse off my brush. And I'm going to use this size 18 Escoda Perla brush. And I like this because it's a larger brush, but it's synthetic and it doesn't hold a ton of water. And it's good to use for skies because I have more control here. So I'm looking at the paper, getting some blue on my brush. Now remember, I wet over the whole paper, but it's been sitting here for just a couple minutes. So I'm going to have a little bit more control now when I paint around my main cloud. So it'll kind of go up like that and come down like this. And this right here is my main cloud. So now I'm painting some blue. And I'm going to come back and I will add some darker blue at the very top of this. But right now, I'm going to think more about some of the grays and kind of the form of the cloud. Because this is still wet. I can get a nice wet edge. So I'm going to come back to the blue in just a minute. I'm going to get some neutral tint, some Cobalt Blue. Not quite that much. That's a lot of paint. I'll go over here and use a little bit of lavender, add a little bit of water. Now this is where timing and paint consistency and all these things come into play. The more you practice mixing and get a handle on how much water, how much paint, what's going to happen when you touch that brush to the paper, practicing all those things is so important. And that's why things like this are so good to do even when they don't end in a finished painting. All right, I'm going to add a little bit of form to this main cloud, the shadow that's underneath the cloud. And as the clouds near the horizon, there's more and more information. There's more clouds and things down there. So I'll just suggest some of that by moving my brush around. I'm going to put a little bit of rose madder permanent into this mixture just to add a little bit of variety. And you can just take your time, play with this, working wet into wet, keeping track of what's happening on the paper. Are you getting a soft, lost edge? Now I'm working at a little bit of an angle. It's about 35 degrees. But if you find that it's just flowing down the paper and you're kind of destroying what you've already painted, you know that you're using too much water. So that's when you want to back that off. It's helpful to have a paper towel in your hand if that's an issue and just take away some of the water as you're painting if you need to. I'm going to put some cerulean and some of these grays on this brush and just let the bottom of the sky just kind of disappear into nothing. All right, now I want to add a little more blue up in that sky like I mentioned. You'll notice that when you're painting skies, now this is kind of a hazy reference, but generally skies are a deeper, richer blue at the top, and as you get down to the horizon, they're more and more diffused and less blue. So let's add a little more blue up here. And use this to kind of define our main cloud here. That idea of laying in the gray, the light silvery gray of the cloud first, then coming in and painting around it, negatively painting around it, thinking about values and strength and timing, all those things are going to make you a better watercolor artist. If you can pay attention to them, you can really pay attention to what's going on the paper. All of that makes a difference. All right, we are almost done with this. The last thing I want to do is just get a little more strength and just bring some of this forward a little bit with some more gray. And here I have a paper towel in my hand. I can take off some of the moisture off of this brush and get a little bit more control. And see, I'm dropping these marks on the paper, and they're not hard to find edges. They're still just kind of soft, lost edges, and I really like that, especially when I'm painting clouds. So that's the idea. Give this a shot. Practice this yourself. Start by wetting the paper on both sides, working from light to dark, lay in the gray for the clouds, build up your strength, and then go in and paint the blue around the cloud to define it. As you work through practices like this, you will continue to improve in watercolor timing and become a better painter. Next week, we are going to paint this French landscape scene. I'm going to walk you through this scene step by step, and we're going to talk more about timing, color mixing, and everything that you're going to need to know to paint this scene. So if you haven't subscribed, go ahead and hit that button, hit the notification button. I come out with a new video every single Monday, and you're not going to want to miss any one of these. Now, if you're looking for something that can help you today in planning your painting, picking the right subject, and working through some of these tricky things in watercolor, take a look at this. Have you ever been really excited about a painting and you get all set up, you find that right reference that you're excited about, and then it's time to go and you feel lost? I have a free resource that I want to give to you today that can help with these problems. My 5 steps to plan a successful watercolor painting. I walk you through the crucial planning phase of your painting that will help you understand what you're going to paint first, second, and third. The planning is really so important, especially in watercolor. This medium is harder to correct. It's so immediate. So having that plan is very important. I send you a PDF that you can download. And the great thing about this is you can have it on your phone. You could print it out. You can download this right now before you start your next painting. All you have to do is follow this link here and download my 5-step guide to planning a successful watercolor painting.